We fight for that itch.
Rarely do I see any American Italians eating in here.
But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you.
Villkoret är att jag får leva.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Hey there, welcome to Real Genius. I am Chris Vognar, culture critic for the Dallas Morning News.
And I'm Robert Wilonsky, city columnist for the Dallas Morning News.
Nice coat.
Yeah.
We're matching. He's finally following my fashion.
I like
lead.
to think of myself as one sporty son of a gun.
Damn right. So last time, Robert, we talked about a superhero comic book movie. I remarked that you are entrenched in comic books. I am not, and we both really disliked Batman versus Superman. Now we're talking about Captain America, Civil War, and I'm still not entrenched in comic books. You still are, and this time I get the impression that we both really liked this new Avengers film.
Well, I'm a big fan. It is everything that Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice is not. Chiefly good, interesting, entertaining, fun, lighthearted, and something I'd like to see again on purpose.
And swift, I would say, really moves.
Yeah, for a 2.5-hour movie, it's pretty quick moving.
I did not have the urge to look at my watch and see what time it was.
You know, my 12-year-old, who was sitting next to me, got a little antsy. I thought it was interesting that Harry's biggest complaint is that the fight sequences went on too long. What 12-year-old says the fight sequences go on too long?
Your 12-year-old.
That was the craziest criticism of a superhero movie I had ever heard. Especially because this is the one with my favorite fight sequences, because for the most part, it's just hero-on-hero violence.
You want to lay out the basic plot, and then we'll look at a scene from
Yeah,
Captain
this is
America.
based on, very loosely, the Civil War storyline that appeared in the comic books many years ago. In that one, the question was the government wanted the superheroes to reveal their identities because they wanted to be able to keep track of them and wanted them to come under the government's auspices. Here, it's a little less. It's basically the government here represented by William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross.
Secretary of Defense or State?
Secretary of Defense.
Defense, thank you.
He appeared in the very first issue of The Incredible Hulk in 1962, that particular character. William Hurt actually played him in The Incredible Hulk several years ago. So it's nice to see him back. I love the fact that these Marvel movies maintain a sense of continuity throughout them.
I always love to see William Hurt anyway. As soon as he showed up, I was like, all right.
I just like the fact that so we've had William Hurt and Glenn Close in Marvel Comics movies.
That's what the world's coming to.
From The Big Chill to Marvel comic movies.
I'm sorry, I derailed your plot.
It's kind of hilarious.
Your plot summary.
Well, the plot is basically William Hurt wants after all the deaths that have occurred throughout all the Avengers and Captain America and Iron Man movies, that he basically wants them all to sign these accords, which say that they will not act until the United Nations says it's okay for them to do so. Captain America doesn't want to sign on because he wants to go where he's needed, when he's needed, and when he believes he's needed. Iron Man says yes, he's guilt-ridden. Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. is guilt-ridden, says yes, it is time for us to sign up, and the other heroes fall in line accordingly. Those on Team Captain America, those on Team Iron Man.
So we're going to watch a scene that involves Team Captain America. This is new Avengers recruit, or new Captain America recruit, Ant-Man, played by Paul Rudd, joining the party. Funny scene.
I want to see a movie, just this scene, for 2 hours. It's my favorite scene in the movie.
Let's take a look.
How about our other recruit?
He's raring to go. Had to put a little coffee in him, but he should be good.
What time zone is this?
Come on. Come on.
Captain America.
Mr. Lang.
It's an honor. I'm shaking your hand too long. Wow, this is awesome.
Captain America. I know you too. You're great.
Jeez. Look, I want to say, I know you know a lot of super people, so thanks for thanking of me.
Hey, man. What's up, Tic Tac?
Good to see you. Look, what happened last time?
It was a great audition, but it'll never happen again.
They tell you what we're up against?
Something about some psycho assassins?
We're outside the law on this one. So if you come with us, you're a wanted man.
Yeah, well, what else is new?
Such a multiple bromance movie and scene. So you pointed out in your review, you gave it a B+, that you thought this movie really balanced the light and the heavy. And I would have to agree with that. That's kind of, I was watching it and thinking there they're dealing with, a superhero movie is finally dealing with this issue, or just the question of collateral damage and just all the crap that they destroy, the
Right.
buildings they knock down, the fact that people actually die in these incidents. Most superhero movies just kind of gloss over that. And at the same time, there's this sort of jocularity between all the various Avengers. Even when they're fighting, they have time to quip. They have time to enjoy each other's company as they're beating the tar.
Right, I love
out
the
of each
line
other.
when Hawkeye says to Black Widow, Jeremy Renner says to Scarlett Johansson, are we still friends? And the response is, depends on how hard you pull your punches.
There you go. I agree with Harry a little bit on the fight scenes being too long, but I don't think they're any longer than they generally are in a superhero movie. There's just more superheroes here, so they have to kind of accommodate. It's a big tent
What
for
I think is
everybody
really
to fit
interesting
in.
is the villain is really a moot point. The villain is just there to get the superheroes to keep fighting after they've already fought. In a way that I don't want to. It's one of the few spoilers in a movie basically about superheroes fighting each other. I think he's an interesting character. I think it's funny that the bad guys are never as interesting as the good guys in any of these movies.
Yeah,
at all.
he's an interesting character that isn't particularly fleshed out.
Right. He's an interest. Although I will say, I think the last scene with him gives him a lot of depth in retrospect. I'm going to be interested to see it again now, knowing his backstory, because I think that's kind of neat. I think it may play better the second time in terms of the gravitas of that particular character. I just kind of loved it. I mean, it is, like I said in the review, it reminds me of when I was a kid and you'd get to the double splash page in a comic book and it'd have everybody charging everybody from each corner of each page. And it was just spread out over these two, a splash page being one scene on one page. And it felt like that the entirety of the movie. I mean, it breezes by. It's funny, it's light, it's charming, it's dark, it's romantic. I love the scene. This is a movie that cuts from a fight sequence to the Vision, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch, making dinner in a kitchen, paprikash particularly, while listening to Chet Baker. It's kind of lovely.
Played by Ethan Hawke. No, not really.
Right. It's kind of lovely because they are in the comic books, they were married. And it touches on that history. I mean, the one thing about these Marvel movies that I love far more than these DC movies is that they're so... they don't stick to the backstories necessarily. Origin stories change here and there. But it is so reverential of the history of where these comic books came from. And they do drop in these little Easter eggs throughout the entirety of them without them getting in the way. But if you know them, you really, really love them. I mean, the fact that finally, here's a teenage Spider-Man who feels like a teenage Spider-Man.
And we have agreed that this is not a spoiler because Spider-Man is in fact in the trailer. He's listed on IMDb, all that fun
It's
stuff.
the Underoos moment in the
And
trailer.
I totally agree. I really liked those first two Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, but this feels like the nerdy kid from Queens who's just kind of overwhelmed by the awesomeness of his superpowers, and he can't stop yammering, and everybody's like, what is with this kid?
He's the wisecracking Spider-Man of the comic
And
books.
he's probably the highlight of the movie to me. That's when he showed up about halfway through. I felt a real jolt go through the whole film, and it's really nice to see them really get Spider-Man. I love Andrew Garfield as an actor. I just don't think he is much of a Spider-Man, and Tom Holland, who plays him here, is now set to be the next Spider-Man in the solo movie.
You've got Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. He's getting his own movie. He's really good, I thought. His accent's a little sketchy from time to time.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I thought Tom Holland was the highlight. As I said in my review, any movie in which Ant-Man and Spider-Man fight, and the way they fight, because they're the two funniest characters in a cavalcade of really funny characters. I mean, these guys are all very charming in their own way. But to see these two comic book, and they are the comic in comic book, go at it, and the ultimate resolution to their fight sequence is kind of glorious. This is a movie that references all of Marvel's past. Luckily for Disney, they now also own Star Wars, so there can be a Star Wars reference drop.
Yes, they can drop
as well.
Empire Strikes Back, Hoth
Right.
reference.
There's a couple of things in here that just made me realize what I love more about Marvel than I do about DC, and I was a DC guy growing up.
And you mentioned the fact that these movies, these Marvel movies in particular, are willing to play with the timeline, and they're not sticking strictly to origin stories, I think the introduction of a Spider-Man in the present, like he's just emerging for the first time, is a perfect example of that. I mean, there will be some purists that are like, oh, you can't do that. Spider-Man came in the 60s, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's perfect. I think it works really nicely, and I think it shows their willingness to have some imagination about these things.
It's just, and the fact that, I love the fact that we've gone through 3, we're now on our 3rd Aunt May. Marissa Tomei now being our 3rd Aunt May.
Yet, as Robert
and the movie
Downey
can't
Jr.
stop talking
points
about
out.
the fact, Robert Downey Jr. can't stop talking about the fact that she's a super hot Aunt May.
Yes.
Your strangely hot aunt, he refers to Aunt May a couple of times as. And it's just funny. This movie is, I was trying to think of which of them, I love so many of the Marvel movies, but I realized the ones that I like the most, Iron Man, which is pure pop pleasure, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a blast.
Even poppier pleasure.
Ant-Man, which is just kind of a goofy grin, and this, which has some dark moments. It's about guilt and retribution, and it's not just guilt and retribution over the death of superheroes, but other stuff as well. It's just so damn charming and so funny.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It really is. So there you have it from both the comic book guy and the I'm not a non-comic book guy. I'm just not going to pretend to have your comic book depth on these matters.
I can't wait till we talk about Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that'll be fun too. You think that'll be fun? Might be fun. Could be fun.
Look, the fact is DC has set such a low bar with Batman versus Superman that...
Maybe that was their strategy all along. They wanted to make Suicide Squad look really good.
I'll tell you, watching this made me so sad for the comic books of my childhood. I love Batman and Superman comic books more than I loved anything. I look at them now and just wonder, why do I care? Because DC has done such a poor job, and Marvel has managed to make... I can't believe it's only been 8 years since Iron Man. It feels like it's been 100. But they've done a great job of cranking these things out and keeping me interested.
And I'd say this is one of the high points for Marvel.
Yeah, absolutely, especially after Age of Ultron.
Yeah, which was good, but got kind of dull and
this one's great. I can't wait to see this again.
There you have it, Captain America, Civil War. Read Robert's review at guidelive.com, and please come back and see us next week.